This Wolverine let down his entire world.
Want to talk about what's haunting you, or should we wait for a third act flashback?
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. A lot of you have been asking if we'll see any Blade references during Deadpool and Wolverine just because of what they're doing. There's so many Easter eggs and references to all these different Marvel movies from different studios, not just MCU, but Fox Marvel, Sony, New Line, also Lionsgate Marvel movies. There's even that brand new Blade game that they just announced a while ago, so no surprise that we also just got a new report that Wesley Snipes' Blade is supposed to appear during all these cameos in Deadpool and Wolverine. And as a lot of you will remember, he and Ryan Reynolds have a lot of personal history going back way before he ever became the Deadpool character in the first place, and because so much of the movie is just referencing these wider Marvel movies.
How many of you are there?
There's enough. We operate in sleeper cells. When one goes down, another cell activates to pick up the slack.
So it only makes sense for them to reference the Blade movie in some way. It's also the godfather of all modern Marvel movies, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the episodes. This is just the beginning, like there's so much that they didn't include in all the trailers, particularly a lot of the cameo scenes. But I've gotten so many questions about Wesley Snipes coming back in the new Blade movies, the new Marvel movies, even before they revealed Deadpool and Wolverine was going full X-Men No Way Home with all their cameos and multiverse crossover. They announced that new Blade movie with Mahershala Ali, so naturally a lot of people were wanting Wesley Snipes to come back like, is he going to be the new Whistler? Why don't you just make him the new Whistler? He just fit right into those movies. Then they announced that they were going to do Avengers Secret Wars, so everybody was like, this has to be the king of all cameo movies. Like everybody who was ever thinking about being a Marvel character back in the day is probably coming back for this in some way. This was actually Wesley Snipes a couple years ago answering questions about doing more Blade movies, a new Blade TV series in the MCU.
There was a little buzz about maybe a Blade 4 or maybe a TV series. Blade. I mean, I think we all like Blade.
There's always a possibility, you know. It's in Marvel's hands, and they're controlling the pace and the flow with that.
If you don't remember, there was a Blade TV series, but he wasn't really involved with that. Like, that was a completely different version of the character, and it was then trying to continue the franchise after Blade Trinity. It mostly followed Blade's daughter, who is a character in Marvel Comics. I don't know if she's going to be involved in any of the new Mahershala Ali Blade movies, though. I think it's just starting with him. But it sounds like when he did that interview, he'd been talking to Marvel, Kevin Feige, but then they announced the Mahershala Ali Blade reboot movie with his version of the character, debuted him during the Eternals post-credit scene.
Sure you're ready for that, Mr. Whitman?
If you didn't realize, that is Mahershala Ali's Blade character off-screen. Cut to like a billion years later, they still haven't paid off that scene. That was meant to set up a completely separate Blade movie that they were going to do a long time ago. I'll talk about that later in the video. But it would have involved Kit Harington's Black Knight in a much bigger way with his ebony blade, like going full Black Knight, vampire hunter, so to speak. But if you're not a big fan of the original Blade movies or you haven't seen them, they are essentially the godfather of all modern Marvel movies of the MCU itself, even before the Bryan Singer X-Men movies where we saw Hugh Jackman become Wolverine and a lot of those actors now coming back in Deadpool and Wolverine to play versions of their characters again. Those original X-Men movies get a lot of the credit for setting off this modern superhero movie craze, but really that actually started with the Blade movie in the late 90s. It even helped Marvel keep the lights on in the 90s after its bankruptcy when it had to sell the rights to its biggest characters to Fox, Sony, any other studio that would give them a bag of cash. New Line got Blade. David Goyer wrote the movie. He's written a lot of other comic book movies in different genres like DC and Marvel since then. He said that at the time it went through a bunch of different versions, but one of the other big reasons why it was groundbreaking at the time is because it was a rated R movie, and at the time, most big comic book movies were firmly PG-13 or even like PG or G. But you have to remember, like zoom back to the 90s, we were coming off the Joel Schumacher Batman era with Batman Forever and Batman and Robin with the George Clooney version of the character. That was such a big debacle, like it leaned heavily into camp so far that after that, studios were terrified, absolutely terrified of doing anything at all that was that earnest, jokey, over-the-top seeming comic book material. So there's this big pivot away from that to much more serious fare. Like, no, we need to have really, really serious comic book movies if we're going to do those. Naturally, you watch the Blade movie, it threaded that needle perfectly at the time, like it perfectly fit that role, like it was the opposite from this very campy Joel Schumacher type of Batman movie. And the success of the Blade movie also helped inform some of the more serious tone of the X-Men 2000 movie, like they just had the black leather joke during X-Men 97.
Almost forgot.
Oh, am I going to war or a circus?
What'd you expect? Black leather?
You actually go outside in these things? What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
So no coincidence in present day, a lot of those X-Men actors coming back to play versions of those characters again in Deadpool and Wolverine. If you look here at this lineup here, like this is just a brief moment in the movie. There's X-Men Last Stand characters like Callisto. This is the Russian from the Thomas Jane Punisher movie of all places. Super deep cut. So they're going for references like this, like just reach as deeply into the toy box as you can go. Blade would probably be one of the easiest go-tos for that. But ever since they announced their Marvel Phase 4 lineup years ago with the new Blade movie, I've been getting these questions about Wesley Snipes coming back as Blade. I'd always been skeptical though, because we knew that Ryan Reynolds was still going to be Deadpool, and he was going to have much more authority coming in because Deadpool was such a popular character. So when it came to Deadpool and Wolverine and Ryan Reynolds reaching out to all of his friends in real life to come do cameos in the movie, playing their Marvel characters again, there was a big question as to whether or not he would actually try to bring Wesley Snipes back, mostly because of the reports that came out about what things were like on the set of the Blade movies 20 plus years ago. And if you didn't follow news from back then, it was bonkers. It was absolute chaos on Blade Trinity. I don't know how much of those rumors about Wesley Snipes are actually true. Patton Oswalt does a whole bit about how nuts things got on the set of Blade Trinity when they were making the movie. Some of it sounds like it was Ryan Reynolds' fault and he and the other cast members clashing with Wesley Snipes' more method style as an actor when he was doing those movies, because he did go full method. Like he would only respond to Blade, he wouldn't respond to Wesley or to Mr. Snipes, kind of like Jim Carrey does when he gets into character, but Wesley Snipes being ultra serious because the Blade movies are so much more serious than the stuff that Jim Carrey does. Reportedly, there was a lawsuit on the movie over pay. Wesley Snipes got adamant about isolating himself from the rest of the cast and wouldn't communicate through anything but his PA and written notes to other people. It sounds like that's why a lot of his scenes in the movie wound up being just himself and the villains, not a ton of scenes with the rest of the other heroes, because apparently Ryan Reynolds, Jessica Biel, Natasha Lyonne kept trying to get him to break character, just messing with him while they were filming. If you've never seen people break character during scenes, like there's a lot of joking going around on the modern MCU Marvel movies because Robert Downey Jr. just films that way, like just his style, doing a lot of improv. Wesley Snipes is like the opposite of that. So it just fostered a very difficult environment filming the movie between Ryan Reynolds and Wesley Snipes. Ryan Reynolds' style of filming sounds a little bit more like what Robert Downey Jr. does, where there's a lot of improv happening.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Is that supposed to be scary? Pegging isn't new for me, friendo, but it is for Disney.
But because all this stuff on Blade Trinity was happening long before Ryan Reynolds became Deadpool, it was even before Green Lantern, he was the low man on the totem pole. It sounds like he just really did not enjoy working on that movie with Wesley Snipes at all. Way back when he was promoting the first Deadpool movie, he was asked about doing Blade 4, like more Blade movies with Wesley Snipes. This is the clip of him basically trying to say hell no in the nicest possible way. Like he's trying to be really nice about this, but very clearly he wants to have nothing to do with Wesley Snipes.
I heard Wesley Snipes talking about a fourth movie, coming back into the game. And I was wondering, would you be interested to do another one, to be back as Hannibal King, or why?
No, I
Wesley Snipes ask you,
Yeah.
come back, you'd say, yeah, sorry, man, but...
I would say sorry, no.
Okay.
Now you have to remember that that's from 2016, a long time ago. It sounds like since then, Ryan Reynolds has buried the hatchet with Wesley Snipes. So whatever beef they had between them, it's long since over. I didn't see any reports about what Wesley Snipes would be doing as his version of Blade or a variant of Blade in the actual movie. There's supposed to be scenes of Deadpool traveling the multiverse before he and Wolverine wind up in the Void, and then on the Void, there's a bunch of different types of cameo scenes. Like there's all these cameo scenes here with these X-Men, Fantastic Four, other Fox Marvel actors. They seem like they're Cassandra Nova's evil band of X-Men that she's assembled of different variant characters. Then there's a Resistance group with a bunch of other types of cameos and variants. I've talked about them in separate videos. We have the Deadpool Corps. They're like another totally separate group. So there's just a lot of different places where Blade could actually show up and it would make sense. And a lot of you will remember, even before they did Mahershala Ali's Blade post-credit scene in the Eternals movie here, vampires had been canon to the main MCU movies for a long time, like the regular MCU movies. They reference them all the time on a bunch of different TV shows, going back to like Iron Fist, there's She-Hulk, Thor Ragnarok, Werewolf by Night. They even mentioned vampires during the official novelization of the first Iron Man movie back in 2008, of all places during an Iron Man book based on the plot of the movie. Fun fact too, Peter David actually wrote that. Most people just know him from his comic books. Novelizations of movies are very common. It's basically them turning the movie into a book form, but because of the way they write their movies, a lot of stuff winds up hitting the cutting room floor, so it sounds like maybe there was some sort of vampire reference in one of the early Iron Man scripts that just wound up getting cut from the final version of the movie. So vampires just in general are not a new concept in the MCU. When they were asking Kevin Feige about the new Blade movie, asking him like why we hadn't seen Blade up to this point, he said the main reason is that they've been waiting through Marvel Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3 to have a really solid Doctor Strange movie to set off the supernatural side of the MCU. Mostly so that vampires suddenly showing up all over the place on screen with the regular Marvel characters didn't seem super weird to casual audiences who weren't big comic book readers or didn't see the original Blade movies. Previously, I had heard rumors about Wesley Snipes coming back in other Marvel movies besides Deadpool and Wolverine. They're closing down the multiverse saga of movies, so really like the option to bring him back, if it's not going to be some multiverse twist with variants, would basically just have him play a new character. And like I said, I think he'd be amazing as the new version of Whistler in that Mahershala Ali Blade movie. One of the other cool things that's happening with that is it's supposed to set off this whole Midnight Suns that they're going to be doing inside the MCU. Oscar Isaac was talking about that too when he was asked about Moon Knight Season 2. Like they are supposed to do Moon Knight Season 2, but Moon Knight is supposed to cross over with Blade, the Black Knight, Werewolf by Night, basically all these big supernatural Marvel characters. And they're just using Blade as like the big MCU movie to set that off. But I don't know if that means that Moon Knight is supposed to show up in the Blade movie. Maybe in the original version before it changed like 4 or 5 times, which is like a meme now, like new script for the Blade movie, plot totally changed. But everybody let me know in the comments, Wesley Snipes comes back as a variant of Blade inside Deadpool and Wolverine. What do you want him to be doing in that movie? And if he comes back again as a different character in other Marvel movies, what do you want him to do? You just have to imagine him sitting there just waiting for the phone call like, I'm ready to go, call me. Put me in a movie. Most of all the spicier rumors about things that Wesley Snipes did or did not do is like way back in the past, so it sounds like he's also kind of trying to redeem himself in real life too. So you have to imagine if Robert Downey Jr. is probably the best redemption arc in all of Hollywood, then almost any actor is capable of that kind of redemption arc. There's a bunch of really big stuff coming up. We're in the middle of X-Men 97 episodes. I just posted my episode 8 video, so I'll put a link at the end of this and down in the description below. Marvel also just released a couple really big deleted scenes setting up the Iron Man Armor Wars movie, Captain America 4. I'll try to do a video for that as soon as possible too, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss any of that. Everybody click here for that brand new Blade trailer and click here for my new X-Men 97 episode video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.